that's my dad. Is this show really worth all this?
You see this guy in concert, it'll change your life.
Hello, my name is Danny Krastik. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, and today we are here with a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself for our listening audience?
Hi, Danny. My name is Bruce Novotny. I am primarily an editor by trade, but last summer I wrote and directed my first short film called 6 Miles at Sea, and it will be premiering at the Lighthouse Film Festival on Long Beach Island on June 8th.
Awesome. Well, can you tell us a bit about what the film is about?
Yeah, it's a period piece set in 1974. It's kind of a adolescent or pre-adolescent coming of age adventure story. Two young boys, 12 years old. One is kind of discovering rock and roll. The other is still focused on like baseball and the more mature one, shall we say, Gary, drags his best friend Finn to a concert by a then unknown Bruce Springsteen, and the hitch is that the concert is on the island and they live on the mainland, so they've got to find their way across the bay and find a way to sneak into the concert. The concert itself actually happened. It's kind of local lore on the island, but the rest of the film is purely fiction.
Well, I mean, to move to that, what inspired the creation of the film to tell this story? What inspired you to be the one to, come up with these characters and to put them in this situation?
I've had a feature script that I've been working on for several years, set in the same time, in the same place, that I really love and would like to someday make. And I never had an urge to direct, but I got it in. It's suddenly realized that if I was ever going to make that feature, I needed to show people that it could work. So the characters they don't overlap, but the setting and the time period does.
Yeah.
And I wanted to shoot something. I knew it needed to be doable, and I knew ideally it would be engaging, and I thought that this concert might be a good goal, a good focal point to hang a story on. And
Yeah.
I wrote it fairly quickly. It turned out to be kind of ambitious because, I mean, you're a filmmaker, Danny. I mean, the elements I had. Kids were the principal actors. That's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It's a period piece. That's tricky and can be expensive. And I had like almost half of the film takes place on water.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are three pretty challenging elements in this story, but I was never intimidated by any of those things. I knew I had, I was confident I had enough friends and talented people from my time. I grew up on Long Beach Island. I lived there the first 30 some years of my life. Um, and I had written for a local newspaper, and I had published a novel set on the island. So I knew I had good connections in the local creative community, and my family had owned a marina, so I knew I had good connections in the marine community. Um, and the big uh, the first big hire I made was finding a DP, a local DP that I could trust and that I knew could shoot um, the material I needed, and I found that.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, let's zoom back a bit from the film specific. Let's talk about you for a little bit. So you mentioned before you got started as an editor. How'd you get into that?
I moved out to California in the mid '90s, and I was casting around for employment because after I graduated college, I spent the next several years working at my family's marina, and I really loved that lifestyle. I wasn't particularly talented at it, not as talented as my dad was, but I really loved the lifestyle. But things happen, and my life took a turn, and I moved to California and got married, and so I was looking for work, and I signed on as a seasonal hire at a ad agency that specialized in political ads. And I was there long enough that they saw, I think, that I was a good hire. They wanted to keep me around. They had their own Avid and one editor who was overworked. And so they sent me to a few Avid classes. I moved into the position as his assistant. And when he moved on a couple years later, I became the lead editor and stayed there for another few years until that company was absorbed by a larger firm, and they closed the Malibu office where I was based because it was too expensive to maintain. And so I went freelance after that, and I did a couple of, I've done a few features, a lot of like documentary TV, and all sorts of stuff in between.
Yeah. So this was your first time like fully directing something that you came up with and you'd or kind of originated from the beginning, right?
Yeah, it was the first time I directed anything.
Yeah.
I had served as like executive producer or associate producer on a few projects, but like I said, I had no ambitions to direct. I'm not it, it's not a thing that meshes perfectly with my personality. I don't crave control. I don't actually crave putting myself in front of people too much, which is why the edit bay is a good spot for me. Um, but I gained enough. I was confident I'd gained enough understanding of production, understanding of storytelling, and the understanding of what a production like this requires. That I just move forward without much hesitation, without any second thoughts, and it really unfolded really smoothly.
Yeah. Well, as a first-time director, aside from what we talked about earlier with, getting the right crew and the right cast and working with children and everything like that, once you got onto the actual set, what would you say was the most difficult challenge that you had to face and how did you overcome that?
For me, I would have to say the most difficult challenge was um, actually choosing the shots, choosing the framing, and for that I leaned heavily on my DP, a fellow named Tony Kuhn, who I had found really just through searching for DPs in the local area. I landed on his reel, and his first shot on his reel was a drone shot over a yacht club that I recognized, and we were shooting at a yacht club, and so I contacted him. I was immediately comfortable with him, and he was great the whole way through. And so I leaned on him for a lot of the initial framing, and it didn't take me that long to get comfortable with the authority to say, no, let's get this shot. In fact, on the first day of shooting, I think it was before lunchtime or right around lunchtime, like midday. We had a scene where these two young actors came into frame on bikes and dropped their bikes and walked out onto a dock to get to a boat. And so I took a look at the way they had dropped their bikes, and one of them had just dropped it in the mud, in the grass there. And I said, let's get a shot where we see that have the bikes in the foreground, and in the background we see them take off on the boat. And it turned out really good. I was really pleased with the shot, and it gave me a lot of confidence that I can come up with something visual like that. I mean, my experience as an editor helps a lot because I have a good sense of what's needed visually to illustrate something or make that connection. But it wasn't anything that I had really done before. You know, it was I was prepared for it, but I didn't know that I could do it. So that was a big moment for me, actually.
Yeah. Now, there's also, speaking about the visuals, there's a shot there's a bit in the film, and it's in the trailer as well, where you have just this completely underwater scene. So can you walk me through how you did that? Because it looks awesome. I mean, I know the behind the scenes of it, but like it looks really good. It turned out really well.
I was really pleased with that. And again, I trusted Tony and his crew. We considered shooting it, practically shooting it on the in the bay, because we had a picture boat that the kids were tooling around in, and we had it out on the bay a couple times, and it just Manahawkin Bay is quite murky. It's not polluted or anything. But it's brackish water, and the visibility is not very good. But Tony had a great solution for it. He knew of a pool we could get access to. We collected bags and bags of eelgrass, which is the native seagrass that is part of the plot. And we hauled that over to this pool and dumped it in, and we made such a mess. But Tony had this young actor, Finn, just leap into the water, and he shot him. He had an underwater housing that he used to capture the action, and it looks so good that just that little bit of eelgrass drifting in the water makes a big difference. And I think it's seamless. I think we see him jump off the boat, we see him plunge underwater, and I don't think there's any question in a viewer's mind that that's continuous action. And it was that was one of those points where I thought this could work. This could really work.
Yeah, well, it turned out really good. So obviously the film is having its premiere very soon at the Lighthouse Film Festival in LBI. After that, I mean, where else is the film going to be?
I don't really know. I'm on the board of directors of a festival out here in California, the Ojai Film Festival, and we will run it here. And in fact, last November, um, I presented a short kind of a workshop of from script to screen, and I showed an early cut of the trailer, um, and talked about making the film. So they're prepared to show it. But I haven't entered it in other festivals yet. Um, I may enter it in other select festivals, but it's its purpose primarily for me was just in as a calling card to because I would when I'm out there in June, I would like to start the process um, of raising money for a feature of contacting potential investors and pitching the feature and using 6 Miles at Sea as a demonstration that it can work, and I can be part of the team that makes it work.
Mhm. Yeah, well, you already, told us a little bit about the location and the time period and everything like that for the future. Are you able to give us any more information yet on any sneak peeks about what the future would be about when it gets made?
Yeah, let me see if I can boil it down without giving too much away. It's a similar starting point. Um, the character, the primary character, or one of the primary characters, is a 12-year-old boy who's more interested in baseball than girls. Um, it's part of it is his um, coming of age because he's reluctant to take that leap into teenagehood, into adolescence.
Mhm.
He likes his life. He likes his baseball cards um, um, and his father is kind of on a similar path. His father is this in the early 70s. Um, it was kind of there was a lot of turmoil, kind of a hangover from the 60s, and there was still a lot of crazy stuff going on. And the father just doesn't like it. He wants the world um, to be the world he grew up in and was comfortable in.
Yeah.
And so he's resisting moving forward as well.
Mhm.
Um, so it originally started out as a coming of age for the son. And as I developed the story, it became uh, more of a duet with the
Mhm.
father. And there's a third character, a young girl, older than the boy, who comes to stay with the family for the summer, and he develops a crush on her, and she um, helps him overcome his reluctance um, to engage with girls, and um, he helps her uh, come to term with some of the issues she's facing. She's staying with the family because her home life isn't great, and she's unsure of what the future holds for her as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a three-parter, but in 1974 was the year that the Philadelphia Flyers won their first Stanley Cup, and that figures into it as well. Um, so uh, so that's why the script currently is called Flyers Game.
Okay.
And it's a title I really like, but um, some of my filmmaking friends have said that's not a good title. But I like it. And actually, one of the lessons I learned on 6 Miles at Sea is um, as a director, sometimes you gotta just say, no, this is my film. This is what we're doing. And the team will pull behind you
Yeah.
in that direction.
Yeah. Well, given your experience both as a director now as well as all your experience as an editor, what kind of advice would you give to people that are trying to break into the industry?
Just breaking into the industry in whatever position you're aiming for, I would say just do work, make films. You know, not just to generate content not just to generate content that will show that you can do it, but more importantly, to gather the experience, to face unique challenges that pop up on every set, and learn not just how to make changes on the fly and how to fix problems that crop up, but to learn that they can be fixed. That there is going to be a solution, even if it's not readily apparent, and to not be so to be comfortable with shifting on the fly sometimes. Just as a quick example, the one day that we spent that was primarily a shooting day on the water. I had envisioned having just some drone coverage of the boys in the middle of the bay, and Tony had his drone with him. But in midday, as is typical in that location, the south wind came up and it was howling. It had to have been 30 miles an hour, and I wasn't sure we'd be able to shoot the boys on the boat because of the rough water. Thankfully, we were able to find a spot that was sheltered. But there was no way I was going to ask Tony to risk his drone in that kind of wind. So we moved on without it, and I don't think we miss it. I mean, it would have been nice to throw in a shot in the montage of the boys crossing the bay, but we didn't need it, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that decision.
Awesome. Well, to end off, we always have one final question for all of our guests, and it is, what is your favorite movie? If you have to pick one.
I can answer that pretty quickly. LA Confidential is my favorite movie.
Yeah.
And has been for years. And I'm not sure why. I mean, I like noir, but it's not, and by any means my favorite. But I love period pieces for one thing, which that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like Curtis Hanson's direction. I love the intricate story and how you can get lost along the way, but at the end it makes sense. And if you go back and watch it a second time, everything clicks into place. And it's one of those movies I can watch over and over. And if it's, if I land on it on cable and I'm in the middle of it, I can watch it from that point on.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you, Bruce, very much for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing the movie very soon. I think when this airs, it'll be like 2 days from when it premieres at the film festival, and we're looking forward to everything that you do next.
Cool. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk with you, Danny. And I hope I didn't go on at length too long, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone at the premiere. It's at the Surf City Firehouse at 3:45. It's a block of shorts at on June 8th. So hope to see everyone there, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.